This hour we have Scott French. Scott has extensive experience in all areas of fashion, from concept to design to marketing, sales, production, and retail sales. He's also a serial entrepreneur. He's the co-founder of Very New York, a fashion events and relations agency based in New York and Los Angeles. He's going to speak with us today about how to market and brand yourself as an arts entrepreneur. So please join me in welcoming Scott French.
Yay. You had to sit right in the front. I see who's there. So, by the way, serial entrepreneur does not mean I'm an entrepreneur in serial. It means that I do this a lot. Just to be clear about that. You can't hear me? Is that better? Better? I think it's a directional level here, so. Do you want me to talk like this? Okay, sorry. How about if I pin it right up here? Is that better? Okay, good. I look really ridiculous, but that's okay. So I was asked to talk today about branding and marketing, and the first thing I did was try to figure out what that means, because I do this all day long, but don't really know what branding and marketing is. So let's see if this works. Did it advance? Excellent, okay, great. First thing is, to me, branding is just the logo. It's a brand. It's what, and I also want to, is there a difference? But branding, by definition, is the act of communicating your positioning. Okay? Branding creates context for how you're perceived. When you see that logo, you know what to think about that item or that design or that, whatever you're going to, that band, whatever it is. Marketing, on the other hand, is the act of promoting and selling your products. It's sort of what you do to make it happen, what you do to get your brand out there. So then I thought, okay, great. What's the most iconic brand I could think of? Nike, that Nike swoosh. Why did I think of that one? Because someone happened to be walking by me when I'm doing this and wearing a pair of Nike sneakers. But nonetheless, you see the Nike brand, you know immediately, what that means. So I put it in Google and said, Nike branding. Up came the swoosh, okay? So is it up there? Yeah, good. Nike branding, up came the swoosh. I put in Nike marketing, and up came one of their ads. So that made sense, right? I scrolled a little further down, and under Nike branding, this ad appeared. And under Nike marketing, the swoosh appeared. So I'm like, even Google doesn't know their difference here, okay? And if Google doesn't know the difference, how could I possibly expect to know the difference? Google's far smarter than me, correct? The reality is, I really came to the conclusion after doing some research that this is more or less what these lines ought to be like. It's a cross between the two, okay? Branding dictates marketing, marketing dictates branding. So it's not so clear, cut and dried. So I thought, well, this is not gonna be a really good talk, coming here today and talking about branding and marketing, and I don't even know what it means. And I say, yeah, they both mean the same thing. So I thought, well, how can I put this in as few words as possible? Because that's what I'm all about, few words in life. So I just came up with this. Branding is really your label, your logo, your name. Label of a garment, logo of a band, the name of the band, the name of you, if you're the product, et cetera. That's sort of the brand. The marketing is how you get out there. The ads, shows you put on, concerts if you're a musician, art shows, social media. That's what you put out there to tell the story of your brand, okay? So that said, that's what we're gonna talk about today, how these things influence each other, back and forth. But before they do that, I thought, I can see the screen right down there. I'm wondering what's going on behind me. What do you know? So the first one I talk about, I'm not used to this high-tech world. I'm talking about a little bit about my journey first, because I think there's a lot of things that can be gained from my journey that is directly related to what I'm going to talk about towards the end of this presentation today. So where does my journey begin? Well, it doesn't begin where you might think it begins. My journey begins in a farm in Virginia with no running water, no electricity, and nothing around me remotely close to the world I'm living in today. Literally, we wanted water, we went down to the well, or the spring. There's a little stream at the bottom. This wasn't the actual house. This is very close. There was a stream at the bottom of the hill. We brought up water to the house. We wanted to go to the bathroom, went out in the cornfield or out in the cow field and used the outhouse, okay? Then at a very young age, my parents decided, let's upgrade us a little bit. They moved all the way to a beautiful trailer park in Pennsylvania. So some would argue it's an upgrade, others would argue it's not, but regardless, I grew up in a trailer park in Pennsylvania. I knew that there was something more beyond the confines of the trailer park for me. I never quite fit in. I never really fit into the people around me. I was always the outlier, the weird one in the group. And I remember being in kindergarten and then sitting around here thinking, what on earth am I doing here? I can already write cursive, I can read books, I can do these things. Like, what am I wasting my time in this class for? So I was bumped up to first grade. Before I knew it, In high school, I was bumped up another grade. I graduated high school and found myself going off to college at 16 years old. And I thought, what do I want to do? Well, I liked this one chemistry teacher in high school, Mr. Moreland. I thought, I'm going to go study chemistry in college. So literally, I ended up as a chemistry major in college. And for 2 years, I went to labs every day, and I did this every day, and put on hazmat suits, et cetera, every day. And I was doing well with it, but I'm like, what am I going to do with this thing? It wasn't quite feeling it for me. So one night, a friend of mine came to visit me from New York City. He lived in Clark, New Jersey, of all places. You all know Clark? Wow, someone does. That's amazing. Yeah, Clark, New Jersey is where he lived. He took me into New York City, and we ended up in a place called Danceteria. And Danceteria was a nightclub in New York City on 21st Street. And I had an entire world that I could not imagine opened up before my very eyes. I walked in there, and people were all dressed really weirdly. There was music I'd never heard of, thumping on the sound system. And I looked up, and I'm like, I think that's who I think it, mixing music. Yes, that was Madonna over here mixing. That's actually from Danceteria. She was the DJ that night. Madonna was, DJing. Some of you may have heard of her since then. I remember going to the bathroom at one point in time, getting lost in the back room on the second floor. Nightclubs at that time weren't what you people, young people today call nightclubs. You now have a bar where you go underage and get beer. Nightclubs actually were clubs you go and do things in clubs in the day. That's the real heyday of the nightclub world. And I remember this guy in the back painting on the walls, and I remember looking back like a few years later, I'm like, that was Keith Haring, like graffitiing the walls at Danceteria. So I found this little Danceteria drink coupon when he had signed it. He was very famous for trading things for, he would just sign things, do a little artistic thing and hand it to you, and then he would get you to give him things. So that's the way he lived, like trading his art. So this is a drink ticket from Danceteria. But what I realized was, as weird as all this was, I found out like, oh my God, for the first time in my 18-year life, I found, yes, 18 and drinking age is 21. We'll move beyond that. I somehow got in, somehow. I've belonged. I found this overwhelming sense like, I need to get to this place. Like the whole vibe, the creativity all around me, the music, the fashion, the culture. I'm like, this is amazing. But I realized like I go back to school and I'm doing this. I'm like, okay, can chemistry get me there? Was I loving life in chemistry or was I wanting life at Danceteria? I wanted Danceteria. So I thought, what can I possibly do to get there quicker? Quicker meaning after college, how do I get there? So I thought, well, I was always doing lab work with my one lab partner. Her name was Kim Doyle. Her roommate was this woman, a girl named April Holly. And April was always doing interior design projects. And I go to her class, or go to their room to work on my lab assignment. And then I would end up like rushing through chemistry and then doing all of April's presentation boards for her interior design classes. So, and April was loving it because she had one degree in mind. It was the MRS degree. She just wanted to get married and get out of college. That was her goal in life. So I addressed her needs. She addressed my needs. I had a creative outlet. She was getting good grades. What's not to love? So I thought, well, okay. I don't see many chemistry labs around New York City, but I see a lot of buildings. So I'm going to become an interior design major. So that was my goal. So I took my organic chemistry test, walked across the quad into the interior design department and said, I want to be an interior design major. And this lovely woman named Connie Horacek said, oh, dearie, I would love to have you be an interior design major, but we don't have an interior design major here at this school. That's a major for fashion people, and they take interior design as one of their classes. I'm like, great, I'm a fashion major now. That's literally how I ended up in fashion, to get me to New York faster, okay? So over the next 2 years, I decided I needed to get some jobs, make some employment. I'm not about the starving artist mode in life. So I worked in the chemistry lab as a lab instructor. Yes, I was the only lab instructor in the history of the chemistry department that was a fashion major. I also was the president of the American Chemical Society student affiliates that year. So I would go to these meetings with these esteemed professors that come in and speak to us. Invariably, oh, what area of chemistry do you want to be involved in? I would always say fashion, and they were puzzled. But anyway, so as a lab instructor, I also got a job in the campus bookstore. I also got a job in the Freeman Gallery of Art, which is the on-campus art department. The Freeman Gallery of Art allowed me to do homework and get paid to do it. That was a beautiful thing. The bookstore, I got didn't have to go shopping for my books. I could get them in advance, no rushing, whatever. So I got that. And then the chemistry lab, because I could, okay? So I left college and decided I'm going to conquer the world of retail. That's going to be my career. I'm going to be an amazing retailer. So on June 16th, 1987, I pack up my bags, leave the trailer park in Pennsylvania, and head up to New York City. And I get a job at Banana Republic. This is not the actual store. I couldn't find the actual store. On 59th and Lexington, across from Bloomingdale's. And it's 8 a.m., my first day on the job. I say, I am going to conquer the world of fashion retail. It's going to be my future. Here it is. I found my future. That was at 8 o'clock in the morning. Around 8:15 that day in the morning, I'm like, I've got to get out of this job. Like, this is like, slit my wrist and get me out of here. This is not for me. These throngs of people showing up. I want my t-shirts. Do you have safari jackets? It was crazy. So I'm like, but an amazing thing happened on Friday of that week. I got a paycheck. I'm like, I like this. I'm now getting paid. It's happening. I call it when my cash flow reversed. I got a paycheck. I also realized that I was only working occasionally a day here and there, lots of evenings and weekends, but I had my weekdays free. So I had this chance to get paid and explore. So while I was working there, in the door used to walk this woman all the time, and Tasha Polizzi was her name, and she was the director of design for Banana Republic. She came from Ralph Lauren, and she was hired to reinvent Banana Republic's product mix. This is the time when the Gap had gotten rid of Banana Republic, so the Gap had just bought Banana Republic. The original founders had left. So they were transitioning to a real retail environment. They should have stayed where they were, in my opinion, because it was much better, but whatever. Natasha would come in all the time shopping. Her studio was right near where I worked, right near my store. So I said to her, can I come see where this stuff's made? I want to come. She said, yeah, come by anytime you want. So I would go every day I could, every opportunity I could. I'd go to the design studios and hang out in the design studios at Banana Republic. And Natasha was amazing. She would welcome me in and show me what they were doing, and I would pick colors with her and whatever. I was basically her little intern, if you will. So I was getting more and more frustrated. We would go to fittings, and I was loving this side of the business, but I talked to her. I said, I really would like to be on the design team. Is there any opportunity here and working on this side of the business? And she's like, they will never allow it. Gap would not allow you to switch between tracks. You're a retail track or your design track. So she said, I can't move you if I wanted to. So if you quit your job, maybe I could hire you back. I'm like, well, the maybe is what I didn't like too much. So I would go to these fittings. But one day, I thought I was wasting my time. But one day, an amazing thing happened. I was in a fitting, and I don't know if you know anything about design students or not, designers or not. They love to pat themselves on the back, tell you how great they are and how wonderful everything their world is. So they were in a fitting, and there's this chambray off-the-shoulder dress, and the model's standing there doing her little thing on the stage. I'm like, nice. And they're like, wow, I did such a great job. I'm amazing. And Tasha looks at me and says, what do you think of it? I said, it's a nice dress, but we can't sell that in the store. And then this designer's like, he did it, no, she did it, whatever. They're pointing, everybody but them did it. The reality was, I said to her, the fixtures we have in the store won't work. That's an off-the-shoulder dress. There's no way to display it. We don't have mannequins. We're hanging on their side, laying on tables type of store. And she's like, wow, like this is the design director said it. They went back to the table, but I got this immediate moment, a little light bulb went off in my mind, that I'm going to be a better salesperson because I understand the story of the creation, and I would be a better creator someday because I've sold. So I understood both sides of the equation here. I understand what each side wants. All of a sudden, I wasn't wasting my time anymore. I realized that at that moment. So I still need to get out of there, okay, and figure out something else out. I also was getting the feeling in life like I was not going to be working for someone forever. This is not my shtick, okay? So like Nick said, I'm a serial entrepreneur, serial S-E-R-I-A-L, not C-E-R-E-A-L, entrepreneur. So I thought, I've got to figure out how to get my own thing going. So I knew I wanted to design. I knew I wanted to make clothing. So that's where I'm going to go. So one night over dinner, my girlfriend mentioned she saw this article in Vanity Fair magazine of this guy. Anybody know who that is? David Byrne from Talking Heads, the band Talking Heads, shot by Annie Leibovitz. Okay, and Jennifer said, "Wow, I would love to have a grass dress like that. I'd wear that outfit." So I'm like, that's interesting. So she wanted a grass clothing, and we're like, ha ha, he moved on. A couple weeks later, months later, whatever, I was in a carpet store in Baltimore, Maryland, walking with my grandfather. I walking across the floor, I tripped on something. I looked down to put the carpet back where I tripped on it, and it was a roll of AstroTurf. And I thought, I was like, I could sew this. Okay, this is something I could actually, so I said to the guy, how much is this? How much can I buy of this? He said, I saw a huge roll, I was on a train. He said, oh, whatever. I said, give it to me, I'm gonna buy it. My grandfather was looking at me like, okay, whatever. Aren't you on a train back to New York tonight? Yeah, whatever. I got this thing, I'm that person on the Amtrak train, heaving this big thing of AstroTurf on the train with me. I go back to New York. I don't tell anything to Jennifer about it, but I sew a dress out of AstroTurf. Yay. This is not the actual dress. I have the actual dress in storage. I couldn't get it, but I didn't want to have a fashion show here, but it's very similar to this dress. I sewed a dress out of AstroTurf and debuted it for her. She's like, oh my God, I've got to wear this out. So an amazing thing happened that night. We went out to the clubs that night wearing the dress. She walked around and everyone was stopping her and saying, where did you get that dress? Oh my God, I got it. Who's the designer, whatever. So we thought, oh, we're gonna wear this out again next week, but we're going to go out with ourselves next week with business cards with our name on them and a phone number and said, here, buy these, you can call us and we'll get it. So we went out shopping that night, went out showing this in the clubs that night, next week. And like literally 25, 30 people came up to us. So where did you get that? Oh, here, call us. One of them was a reporter for a magazine called Paper Magazine. Just happened to run in the Paper Magazine that night, the fashion writer for Paper Magazine. She said, I'm shooting something with Lady Miss Kier, maybe you don't know her or not, from the band Delight, the following week. My people in the front row, thank you for making me not feel as old as I am. They're smiling when I mention these names. Everybody else is like, who, Delight? But the band Delight, they were a very hot band at the time. And she said, can I get the dress? I said, sure, here it is. We loaned it to her, and the dress, she brought it back a few days later, wonderful. A couple months later, that dress was on Miss Kier and the Delight, and she was in the sort of sitting like this in the magazine wearing our dress. And it said, the line we used was called Happy Clothes. And 6 or 7 people called us from the business cards and bought the dresses. So I'm like, okay, this is interesting. I've got like some commerce thing going here. I can make this happen. But I'm not content with selling 6 or 7 dresses. I want to sell a whole lot more. So there was a store down the block from our apartment called Barney's New York. And I walked into Barney's and said, where would I like to sell my clothing? I want to be on this T-stand right here, the top of the escalator as you walk in the door, 2nd floor, the co-op area. There it is. So I walked up and said to the salesperson, who buys for this rack right here? I want this rack. Who buys that stuff? Like, oh, her name is Jane Harkness. I said, well, I need her number. I said, oh, call the switchboard and they'll put you through. Great. So I get on the phone next day and call Jane Harkness, and she picks up the phone, lovely British accent woman, says, hello. I said, I have something I want to show you. I'll come in on such as a date. She was the buyer for the co-op at Barney's, and the co-op was the new designer section where new things came up. I went and showed her this dress. I showed her the thing from Paper Magazine. I said, I got people calling me up and asking me for it. Here's the dress. It's one sample. I said, where's the rest of your collection? I'm like, collection? You found the dress. Why do you need more? So she bought those 6 dresses. Can you make me jackets? Can you make me skirts? Can you make me? I said, yeah, I'll come back. Sure enough, I came back a few days later. She bought the collection. I went in like 4 weeks after that to call the guy in Baltimore, Maryland, order more carpet, had the carpet sent up to me. I sewed the dresses up, delivered them to Barney's, and I delivered them like on a Monday, whatever. On Wednesday, I went in the store, went up the escalator, and on that T-stand was my dress. I'm getting the collie wobbles now. If you don't know what that means, look it up. Remember seeing, I thought, I got the T-stand. That's the one I wanted, and I thought I'd arrived, okay? Sure enough, over the next few months, Jane ordered more and more things, hats, bags, backpacks. I kept on calling my guy in Baltimore, my grandfather's friend. I said, I need another order of AstroTurf. I need another order of AstroTurf. He's like, what are you doing with all this AstroTurf in New York City? I said, making clothing. Hello? He was so shocked, but he's like, okay, whatever. I also realized I'm a bit of a realist. I'm not gonna make an entire life selling AstroTurf dresses, okay? But this is a proof of concept. I can make something that people want. I can control the message and get it into the right hands. People see it, they call me back. It was becoming a, I can never say this, a quid pro quo. I created my thing, they wanted it, we had an exchange going here, and I was addicted. But I also knew that AstroTurf wasn't the way to go. So I thought, Jennifer and I were talking, what can we do that can really blow out across the country in a meaningful way? And she kept seeing me wearing these crazy underwear every night, boxer shorts from Banner Republic. There were mix and match plaids, weird floral patterns, ducks on them, whatever. I said, I want cool underwear like that for myself. I said, there's gotta be something. If we're women, we went out, sure enough, there wasn't. We couldn't find nothing. It was black, white, and nude. All the novelty in underwear, believe it or not, one time was owned by men, not women. And we found this one line out of France called Princess Tom Tom, and it was $160 for the bra and like $80 for the panties. So it was like, $250 for the set. That was back in the early days, maybe the turn of the century, back in 1989, 90. So it was very expensive. That was close to what we wanted, so we bought it, okay? Then went around the stores and said, do you like this? They said, oh God, we love that line, it's too expensive. So do you like, every store we went to, 10 stores, out of the 10, 9 said they would buy it, and 9 of them told us the price they wanted to buy it for. I'd now done the research. I had an item that they wanted, I had a product that I knew I could make, they gave me the price they would buy it for, and I now had 9 leads for potential customers right there in that one little exchange. So we went back, made some samples, put the little collection together, took it to those 9 stores. I think of the 9 stores, 6 or 7 of them bought it. We had small orders from them. But I'm like, I'm not content. I launched a line called Bettywear, B-E-T-T-Y, Betty. Why Bettywear? Betty was a bar name that Jennifer would use. She worked at the Hard Rock Cafe, and she used to have her name Jennifer on her uniform in giant letters. But all the men would say, hey, honey, what's your name? She's like, Betty. She always point to her name, Jennifer, and say, Betty. So it stuck. Little did we know, dumb luck would have it, Time Magazine came out with a story about all the cool names coming out of California, and Betty happened to be a cool girl that likes to surf. So we happened to hit it just in the right time. We launched Bettywear. So we went, I said, this is great, these 7 stores, but I need more. I want to do hundreds of units, not just tens of units. So we went to Open Designer Day at Henry Bendel, made a call, and on Friday at noon, between 12 and 3, if you showed up, they had to see you. And they would churn you through like a mill, but they had to see you. So I walked up, and they said lingerie and sleepwear, like lingerie and sleepwear, and over there. I walked up, and there was Nina Friedman reading a book. She was the buyer. Every Friday, she would give out 3 hours. No one came in for intimate apparel ever. She looked up and said, oh, show me what you have. So I showed it to her, and she bought the collection. And she placed an order. I got a $14,000 order from her. At that point in time, I'm now in business. Like that's a number I can work with. So I launched Bettywear. And in about 3 weeks, she called me back and said, what other colors do you have? So she placed an order for $42,000, the next one. So the combined total was like $62,000 total in business now I had. But I didn't have the money to do this. I'm like, I need some financial backing. I need some help here. I need to figure out some people to help me. So I remember back how I launched that AstroTurf dress. I used the media. So I said, we need to get some press, get behind this. So we said, what's the gold standard? The gold standard was Women's Wear Daily. You gotta be in Women's Wear Daily, okay? Today, Women's Wear Daily is just a website, right? In that day, it was actually a daily newspaper. It came out every Monday through Friday. Monday was intimate apparel. Tuesday was Men's Day. Wednesday was Wednesday. Thursday was whatever. It was a different day each week. Monday was intimate apparel. I called up Women's Wear Daily. I got the editor on the phone, got her to come down to the studio. She came in, she saw it, and I said, I've got your next cover. And she said, yeah, right, we'll see. I showed her the collection. She asked to take the samples back. Out came the following week on Monday, and I had the full cover of Women's Wear Daily. Again, I have the paper. I couldn't scan it for this. But I got the full cover story of Women's Wear Daily. And then the phone ringing off the hook like crazy. Like I had stores just calling like mad. So I had a real legit business, all built on the back of an idea and a media marketing. Okay? So I built that business over the next 3 years to about $1.5 million a year. It still wasn't enough money to make a huge living on, but it was a sizable business. Due to some difficulty with some financing people I had in place, I had lost control of that name and launched my next company. I launched a company called French Jenny. I like this one better because now I was attached to the product. French was my name, Jennifer was the other name, French Jenny. We became the faces of the brand. okay? So this was through a manufacturing deal I got through a contact from Women's Wear Daily, the woman who put me on the cover of Women's Wear Daily. I called her and told her I needed help. She connected me, and we got a deal with a manufacturer, and we launched French Jenny. These are ads that we did in, this one, I think this was in Harper's Bazaar magazine. I know this one, the other here was from Vogue. I don't know where the middle one was. We changed the logo in the middle one, you can see. We went through a rebranding thing from the first. But anyway, these are an ad campaign we ran, and this business grew over the next like 4 or 5 years to around 10 million a year. At that point in time, we're making some real serious money, all built on the back of marketing and advertising, okay? However, I was really hating in an apparel business. It was not for me. I did this as a way to make a living. I now had some money in my pocket. I want to do my own thing. I branched off and launched my own runway collection under the name Art Scott French, and I started a men's collection. I spent the next 10 years designing collection under my own name. This is one of my runway shows. This is my last runway show in Bryant Park during New York Fashion Week. And I got the collection in a lot of books, a lot of places. It was doing very well with me, but it still wasn't, I wasn't able to, I didn't have the kind of backing I needed to really blow it up huge. And I wasn't content being the starving artist of just like, just getting by on things. And I also realized in doing these shows, I really, really loved the media side of it all. I enjoyed the promotion. I enjoyed doing the shows. I enjoyed that, but I did not enjoy, the fittings and the going and finding the next fabric and doing all the next thing. I didn't enjoy all that. So I was sort of honing in on what I wanted to do. So I thought I want to be involved in the media landscape in some way. So the typical me, why work for someone? Let's start your own media company. So I thought all the media is out there. There's television, internet, radio, newspapers, magazines, all these different media types out there. I wasn't going to start a magazine. I wasn't going to launch a TV network. I'm not Ted Turner. Radio is sort of a dying thing, in my opinion. This is before satellite radio came along. Newspapers, magazines, whatever. I thought, internet, I can do that. I can actually launch a media company on the internet, no problem. Furthermore, it intrigued me. It was the new Wild West, the internet. So I put together a business plan, wrote a business plan up. I took it and shopped it to a friend of mine from college, who I knew in college, who had just sold his company to Google for $300 million. So he had money in his pocket, and I thought, this guy knows how to build things up and sell them and buy them. I said, hey, Anil, his name is Anil Agarwal. I said, can you tell me if I did a good job writing this business plan? He said, sure, run it by me and show it to me. So I wrote the business plan, took it by him. He gave me some advice on it, said this, and this, whatever. I went back, the next thing I would readapt, said, would you be willing to look at it again? He called me up about an hour later and said, I don't know what I'm thinking. Here, come by my apartment, I have an envelope for you. So I went by his apartment with I picked up this envelope, his maid or whatever gave me the envelope, and it was a check for $140,000. He funded my entire business plan. So I got the money to launch the fashion list. So I launched the fashion list. And now I was in charge of a media property. I was able to control my writing, control the aesthetic, control the look, control the message. And I got the idea, I got the experience of what it's like to be on the other side of the equation. And how can, I now had people pitching me. So they were pitching to me to be in my publication. I had a staff of writers that were going out covering shows. I would attend upwards of 100 to 150 shows during each fashion week in New York. We went to Paris and covered shows. I never did Milan or London. Didn't get that far yet, but it was a serious ongoing, digital website. I was also getting bored with that, which I tend to do, and I got the opportunity because I was teaching at Kent State University. I don't know if you've ever heard of Kent State University or not. They have a program in New York, and Dr. Rhodes, I think Murat's predecessor, a few generations back, contacted me. I was a friend of the university through various connections, and she said, hey, would you help me talk about this program in New York? And I said, sure. And if you know anything about Dr. Rhodes, that connection led to another thing. Before I knew it, I was teaching at the Kent State University, New York campus. And through that, I had the opportunity to go to grad school, and I chose Kent State University. I'm not sure if you're aware of that or not, but I'm an alumni. Every time I get there you go, yay. Every time I get a little thing in the mail, like, want to give, I'm like, why are they calling, oh, that's right, I forgot. So I actually went to school and got a degree in Journalism and mass communications with an emphasis on public relations. The longest degree in the history of everything. Like the diploma has like 3 lines to it. But I did it because it's the only thing I could do remotely related to my career path that was all online. I wasn't gonna come and do classes here. I had a wife and 2 children at home and several businesses to run. But I got a degree in public relations, okay? So now I was able, for the first time in my life, to bring all of the expertise I had from design, from the media marketing, from the event production, to owning a media company, to now bringing that all together and be able to consult with clients on what to do. Right before I got the degree, however, I was walking on the street one day looking particularly scrubby after 4 days in the country, and I ran into a woman named Karen Bromley. And I had known her from 30 years prior. Sorry, I'm gonna go back, 25 years prior. I'm dating myself a little bit too much. 25 years prior to this date. She had worked with me very early on in my lingerie career, and we just got to chatting. And she said to me, she owned a PR agency. The Bromley Group was the name of the company. And we got to chatting by the garage there. And she said, we caught up. I gave her daughter an internship years before, whatever. We caught up. She was about to leave. She left. She turned around, Scott. I said, yeah. She said, I've been thinking, I need a person that can come in, help me update this agency, reinvent things. It's feeling a little dated to me. There's the whole internet thing going on out there, that I just don't think we're really capitalizing on digital media yet with all that. There's social media coming on strong. I just need someone to be my partner and help, just re-energize things. I need someone with like entrepreneurial spirit, knows a little bit about the business. If you know anyone, let me know. And I remember sitting there thinking like, what about me? It was in my mind. So I'm like, what about me? And that was on Monday afternoon. And on Friday, I'm sitting at a desk. I'm the vice president of the Bromley Group. I was like, what do you know? So, and literally, it was that easy in this case. Because I had the experience, I had the connections, and an opportunity presented itself. So I ended up at the Bromley Group. Over the next 3.5 years, I reinvented the whole agency. I turned the agency around. We redid the computer systems. I said, we've got to start pitching a certain way, start writing a certain way. I brought in younger staff members. I promoted that person up. I got rid of those 3 people, whatever. I basically reworked her entire agency. And we had, the next year, the most profitable year the agency has ever had in its entire existence in 30-some years of existence. So yay, I'm happy about that, but thank you. But what it really showed me was you've got to keep up with the times. You've got to be on the cutting edge. When you're going and looking at your classwork here, and you're like, oh, who the heck's ever gonna need that textile lab? Or another new knitting machine, whatever. If you're not keeping abreast of it, it doesn't mean you're gonna utilize it, but you gotta know something about it. You gotta be able to talk the language and say, oh yeah, I've experienced that. Or, oh yeah, I understand that. Or, oh yeah, I've heard of that. These are conversations you're gonna have the rest of your life. And if you always approach things always needing the next new thing, always at least knowing something about it, you will be paid back multiple times over in life, okay? And earlier I was talking to a class and someone asked me, what's the one word of advice you would give to the students today? I said, take advantage of the 4 years you have here. You never are gonna be more free any time in your life than when you're in college. For one, you're on someone else's payroll, most likely, or you don't have anything other than classes to go to and some homework to do. There's all these experiences, all these different cultures, all these different things around you. Soak it all up. If you look in the mirror and aren't exhausted from taking advantage of things each day, you've not done enough, okay? Period. And those who do that will be tomorrow's leaders. I mean that, 100% mean that, okay? So I'm now bringing us almost to present here, and then we'll get on to what I actually came to talk to you about. I was sitting in Washington, D.C., one day, and I was at the Bromley Group, and things were like, I was like unhappy there. Karen was like pushing, I gotta get more business. We need more people at paying $10,000 a month, more of the, I'm like, it's not the way of the world anymore. I saw the writing on the wall. Things have changed, okay? It just isn't working. So I was at a conference in Washington, D.C. on disruption, and I was sitting in a room listening to the head of the Central Intelligence Agency talk to us about disruption. And his angle of disruption was disruption and security, obviously. And I'm sitting here thinking, it doesn't get any freaking better than this. I'm sitting in DC listening to the head of the CIA talk to me one-on-one. It's beyond brilliant, like these experiences in life, and how cool this is. But one thing After I talked to this guy, the next speaker was a speaker from NYU, and his conversation was called Disrupt or Be Disrupted. And at this moment in my mind, I'm thinking, I can't go on with life the way it has been. Karen was very, very stodgy in her ways, did not want to move with the times, and we need to update things and move forward with things. And he was talking about disrupt and be disrupted. And during that time, he showed a video. This is not the video, but it's very similar. He showed a video that had these 8 kids sitting around in a circle, all using iPads. And they're opening and closing and moving the apps and all looking at that and playing games with each other. And they're like all 4 or 5 years old. He handed them a magazine. He took the iPads away and slid a magazine in. It was a magazine, a fashion magazine, and they were like this. And they started crying and handed it back. It wasn't working. The magazine wasn't working. The entire room, and in that room was Bill Dillard from Dillard's, the CEO of Macy's. Pete Nordstrom of Nordstrom was sitting in the room. They're like, oh my God. And the guy said, I see all these dumbfounded faces on stage right now, from the stage right now. These are your customers in 10 years. They can't even use the very thing you're using to measure success. The very thing you're using to reach them, they don't even know how to use it. And you think you're going to reach tomorrow's generation? Okay? So the one line that came up, and this is one of the most brilliant things I've ever heard, he said, imagine the most disruptive situation in your business, and somewhere between that situation today is tomorrow's reality. So I was like sitting there like, whoa. Like, what's the most disruptive thing in business? The most disruptive thing I can think of in the PR business is give it away for free. Okay? If it's free, who wouldn't be your client? We're having trouble getting clients that are going to pay $10,000 a month in a retainer, every month for us to do their services, because the only companies that can do that are already occupied. Either they have an internal team doing it for them already, or there's 20 agencies fighting with the 10 customers that can do that. So all we're doing is cannibalizing one another and passing that same customer around so that he comes around again to us. There's no way to win that race. So, but if we can give it away for free, every customer is ours. Okay? Around the same time, I was sitting in the showroom looking at a wall of shoes that we were promoting, and it dawned on me, this is not the actual wall of shoes, but I wasn't smart enough then to photo document my everyday. Looking back, I should have had a photojournalist follow me everywhere I go in life. It'd be far more interesting than this. But anyway, I'm looking at this wall of shoes, and it dawned on me. That customer is paying $7,500 a month in retainer to us, and the only 2 shoes in that entire wall that got any attention would be like the 2 down the lower right-hand corner here or whatever. I thought, they paid $7,500 a month to promote those 2 shoes. How is this sustainable? At some point in time, they say, it's just not worth it anymore. Okay? So the writing was on the wall. It wasn't sustainable. And the disruptive thing is to give it away for free. So I had this bright idea. Okay, here we go. The light bulb went off. That's me in the conference room. I'm the one with the light bulb off. On, excuse me. Okay? I'm sitting there thinking, okay, if we could, and also at the same time, WeWork was coming through the thing. You know what WeWork is? Fractional ownership of an office space where you go in and I'm just going to pay $2,000 a month for a conference room. I work there, but I get use of the library, I get use of that, I get use of the common kitchen, whatever. But you fractionally own it. So you only rent the space you need. You want to staff up for 2 months, you can get more space. Staff back down, no problem. So the concept of fractional ownership was happening. So whenever you see a big movement, like there's multiple things like this, pay attention to that. The light should be going off in your mind as well. Like, what's going on? Why is this happening? Why am I seeing 4 or 5 examples of this? That's a sign right there that the tides are changing. Okay, so I said, what about if we go in, instead of charging by the collection for $7,500, let's come up with $100 per item, okay? So if you've got this whole wall of items and you only want to promote those 2, let's charge you $200 for it. We'll still promote it. We're only talking about those 2, okay? And she's like, but we're taking $7,500 down to $200. I'm like, no, the idea is that we get a whole lot of customers doing this. Now all of a sudden we become the agency that everybody comes to because they're only paying a small amount of money but getting what they want. So I pitched this whole idea to her, and what do you think I heard? I'm sorry, before I go on to that, this whole concept wasn't new. It's the long tail theory of marketing. Anybody familiar with it? Ever heard this term? Okay, the top 20% of products exist in the front here. In the tail, all the way out, all the other items here, that's 80% of the market. There's more to be had in the not the top 20% than there is the top 20%, but almost every business on the planet is only looking at the head of the tail. They want the top 20%, but everybody's fighting for them. Nobody cares about all these. This is sitting untapped potential. 80% of the market is nobody wants. I'll take it, okay? So I went in and sold this to Karen, and here's what she said to me. She said I was crazy. Well, when someone tells me I'm crazy, yeah, bring it on. That's my whole thing, okay? Because I had gone out and done my research. I talked to designers, I talked to companies, I said, what do you think about this? And they're like, oh my God, yes. All of a sudden, every customer could be ours. Let the idiots fight over the top, you know, the ones that want to pay $10,000. I'll take the $10,000 that want to pay $100 each. That's $100,000. Okay? That's actually $1 million. It's more. I wasn't a math major. Okay? But she said no. So I was like, okay, I got to figure out how to repackage this. Then along came something called this little pesky thing here. The COVID virus came along. That's not one of the Linda Orn's knit projects. That's actually a virus. And it shut everything down. And all of a sudden, an amazing thing happened to me. I had no income. Okay? I lost my money, meaning no one's paying me. The biggest fear when you have a job about starting something new is the fear of losing the almighty dollar. Well, now someone addressed that for me. This lovely virus took away my money, okay? So I took the words of Steve Jobs and made the big leap, okay? I gave Karen a call up and told her that I want to buy her agency. I offered her a very fair amount of money and she said no. She said to me, when things get back to normal, and I'm like, things get back to normal, please. We're gonna go back to where we were before. I'm like, well, that's two things. One is we're not gonna get back to normal. Okay, the writing's on the wall. Are you the same as you were teaching the same as it was 3 years ago? Absolutely not. And walking around today, touring the facilities here, several people said, oh, pre-COVID. I heard it's now a line in the sand. That's back then, this is now. Things are different. So it's not gonna get back to normal, okay? And I wanna go back to where we were before. So she told me when things got to normal I didn't agree with, and I wanna get back to where we were, I had no interest in that. So I made the leap because, in the words of the great Steve Jobs, I had nothing to lose and everything to gain, okay? I wasn't getting paid. I also didn't believe I would be getting paid anytime in the near future. Now's the time to seize the opportunity and make the leap, and I founded Very New York. Yay! So that's where I am right now. Very New York is a public relations and event agency. I mean it public events and relations, because public relations is some people have a bad taste in their mouth. So I made it like a math formula. It's a formula, your events and relations. All these little branding cues in here are what we're gonna talk about next, the branding of everything. Okay, also the name of Very New York, think about that, that's a Very New York event. The name describes what it is. I also had the domain. I have a verynewyork.com. I have Very New York on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, I got them all. Long story how I got them, but it didn't cost me a penny. But I own them all. I have other cities as well, by the way, so get ready. World domination's next. Okay, but I founded an agency where we went in and charged by the product. I went out and said, okay, you pay me $100 per product per month and I will represent you. Okay, and everyone's like, what? They didn't believe it. I said, no, seriously, $100 per product per month. Send me, I get a one-page contract, nothing binding, cancel at any time, no minimum requirement. I went against every single thing that the common public relations agencies do and just said, we're changing it all up. And what was amazing, within 3 weeks, I had 9 of Karen's 10 clients. I never once called them. They called me. I simply said, here's where I am. They saw my email address. They checked it out. They called me. So it worked. I stole all her clients. Oh, well. And since then, all those small little clients that I've had, I still have a lot of them in existence, but many of them traded up now to full-on retainer clients. They want more and more and more. So it was a gateway of entry. I could prove my concept to them. I could prove my worth to them and trade up. So that's where we are today. So what are the takeaways from the story? First off, nearly every opportunity I've ever had has come as a result of a connection I've had from before. After I had that first job at Banana Republic that I went out and got myself, never have I ever had to go and seek it for anything myself. It came because I made a call or someone called me, okay? So I'm a consummate networker. I'm always out. Students came up to me today at 1 o'clock and email me. If you don't, it's your loss, because I will keep in touch with you, okay? So I make sure if I meet someone, I put them in the back of my mind, or I put them on my desk. I have stacks of business cards, okay? You never know when you're gonna need the next person, okay? The next thing is never burn a bridge, okay? Never. The person you hate today will be your best friend if they have something to offer you tomorrow, okay? Never burn that bridge. Walk away gracefully. Don't give them any reason to think ill of you. I offered to buy Karen's company before I took her over. So I offered her a lot of money. She can't say I didn't offer it to her. I also let everybody know I did that, okay? And she turned it down. She's now the fool, okay? Ironically, fast forwarding a little bit ahead, she now subcontracts 4 clients to me. And she sells them as herself, I do the work. So, you know, I'm getting money from her anyway, so whatever. So that's that. In the end, I won. This is a big one I believe in. Take at least one step through every open door. I really mean that. If there's a door open, what's behind it? Find out. If it's locked, oh well. Doesn't matter. But go in. Yesterday I was walking through the gallery. What's it called? The Kent State Museum, the museum. The Kent State Museum, there's an open door there. I'm like, what's going on there? I took my head in, looked around. The students all looked at me like, who's this freak? I walked out. Okay, classroom. What did I get from that? Well, today, that's where I spoke today at 1 o'clock. So therefore, I knew where to go. Hey, I gained. Okay, so you walk at every open door. You don't have to dive in and, you know, and live there forever. You take a step in, look around. You never know what you're going to find. The next one, this is a big one. Understand both sides or the many sides of every situation. Don't ever assume that your way is the only way. Your way is one of many ways, okay? Your job is to convince those around you that your way is the right way, okay? Or you hire me and I'll convince them that for you. But you got to understand, if you're asking for something, understand what that costs to give, for them to give that to you. Because it costs them something, okay? And if you want them to give you that space on the page, how can that space on a digital website cost something? Well, that person has to spend their time writing that article for you, okay? You better make sure they get a thank you note back, because in that thank you note back, they're going to remember it, or they're going to think, you know, better of you, or if you're lucky, they'll answer you back. Now you got a dialogue going. So you've ramped that connection up even further. And the last thing to remember from my story before we go on to the marketing side of this is, until you have a product, you are the product, okay? While you're in school right now, you are the product, okay? Your reputation. You're out there putting all your, on social media, like, woo, 10 cigarettes in your mouth and 3 bottles of beer in your hands on a Friday night. Friday night, that's you now. You now own that representation of you, okay? And you think you just delete it, it goes away? I can get it back. People say, oh, my account's private. All it takes is for me to enter it in, pay enough to someone, and I get everything about you. Nothing's private, okay? So all those things you're doing right now, they're all representing you. And if you don't think you're searched when you go for a job, it's the very first thing we do is check out your social media presence, okay? So until you have a product to offer, you are the product, okay? Keep that in mind. How are you representing yourself? I see a couple really uneasy faces out there, including some people that are deleting things like mad right now. Okay, 5 minutes? Great. Okay, great. So why am I here today? Well, these are some really quick things here. I'm here today to teach you how, in 5 easy steps, okay, and some of these we've already discussed, okay, how to do this on your own. Number 1, this is a big one. It makes you very unpopular. Admit it's a business. If you can't admit it's a business, you have a long row, hard row ahead of you. Everything is a business. Every time you put a brush to a piece of paper or to a canvas, you sing a song, you appear somewhere, you make a garment. It's a business transaction. What do you want for that? You want money or you want fame? You want something for that? It's a business. All these people right here will admit, they admit it's a business. The reason you know who these people are is because they admit it's a business and they went about making money or gaining fame or whatever, okay? So they admit it's a business. The next one, create. What is your product? What do you want? What is your product you're offering the world? Is it weird brass sculptures? Or, I'm sorry, marble sculptures? Is it you? that's their product? Clothing, the written word, photography, or even really weird snail trinkets? What is your product? Okay, you gotta determine that. And once you know the product, I wanna give you one word of caution on the product. Beware of using the excuse, I've never seen it before, as a reason for making something, okay? Because is that because no one's thought of it before or nobody wants it, okay? The reality is it's probably the latter, okay? If you've never seen it before, there's probably a reason for it. Don't try it, okay? Or really, really research it before you try it, okay? Because if you've never, I hate to tell you, you're sitting here, you're sitting on the planet Earth right now, you're not the first to do it. You're just not. Just like you gotta admit it's a business, admit you're not the first, okay? Your life will be a lot easier if you stop trying to defend the fact that you're the first. I'm not saying copy everyone. There's your particular angle of it, maybe the first, but you're probably not the first. Okay, next, set your goals. Decide what it is you want. You've got to decide what you want, and that can be many things. It could be money. You could want to stroke your ego. Maybe you want to just be happy. Maybe you just want to be accepted. Maybe you want fame. Maybe it's some combination thereof. But be honest about that. If you want money, admit it. It's okay. Okay? If you want to be in the best, if you're an artist, want to be in the best gallery collections or the best museum collections in the world, don't go for the money or the fame. You know, go for the legitimacy. You're going to have to go a very different path. Maybe you're going to pick and choose where your shows are before, because you're going to get there. You're going to determine who you reach out to. But you've got to decide what you want. And again, once you decide what you want and you're honest with yourself what you want, everything you do going forward is about that goal. The next one, demonstrate your difference, okay? This is where you get into a little bit of storytelling, okay? Number one is you're never, okay, nobody needs you. If all of you go away today, none of you create another thing in the rest of your lives, the world's just fine, okay? We're fine without all of you, okay? The reality is you gotta make them want you, okay? So I'm gonna give you one really fast story. It's like artist Mark Kastabi. Anybody know Mark Kastabi? Mark Kastabi is an artist. You know him? Oh, I thought, yay. I have a bunch of his work. I'm one of the weirdos that collects his things. He's an artist who doesn't paint anything himself. He doesn't come up with any ideas. He doesn't do anything. He doesn't paint them. He doesn't title them. He has a creative council that come in. You work on his creative council. He picks and chooses. That's a good idea. That's not a good idea, whatever. Oh, really? Okay, up it goes. Who votes? Vote. Okay, up it paints. People paint his work. This is actually his factory. And he, rumor has it, signs the work after hours. Nobody's ever seen him sign a canvas. He sells his work for huge amounts of money. Okay, the little thing, the reason how he got people to want him, Sylvester Stallone caught on to the fact that he does this, and he owned 13 of his canvases, and Sylvester Stallone got really mad about it. So Mark called up and said, you're a con artist? He said, you're absolutely right, but I'll buy them back for you at face value. Sylvester said, yeah, got out from under it. Mark bought them, put them in a gallery as the Sylvester Stallone collection, doubled the price, sold them all out, made all the money. He is a complete and total con artist, but that's his thing. What's his shtick? He's a performance artist. When you buy a Kastabi, when I bought my Kastabi live on the wall, I bought the performance. I knew I'm buying the con act, okay? And then the last thing is everyone has a story. Learn to tell your story, okay? And make your story repeat. In closing, I want to show you this one story here. Gita Omri, a fashion designer. She was a 0-30 collection, okay? And she was getting nowhere because the small girls didn't want to be associated with a fat girl collection, and the plus size models felt as if she was selling out by making the skinny girl clothing. So she was having a real tough time getting a market placement. So she came to me, I said, let's tell your story, let's put it down the runway. During her runway show, we showed every single look on a 0 and a size 20. Put them down there every look, and she said, look, they look just as good. They look just as good. You're an idiot for not seeing it. As a result, her collection has grown up, and she's actually now selling as a result. We found a way of telling her story that people can digest. And the very last thing, sell. Sell, sell, sell. If you don't sell, you got to pivot until you do. Because if you don't sell your product, you don't have a tomorrow. Okay? So it requires a lot of things to admit, a lot of hard truths to come to terms with, but you've got to learn to sell. If you don't sell, you're not going to have anything to show for it, okay? This is how to reach me. Please don't. unless you really need to reach me. I don't mind. If you do reach out to me, I don't mind you doing it at all. Feel free, but just make sure you say, hey, I saw you at, and here's my question is. I will gladly answer your questions back. Okay? But just like a random question coming in. I got a request today from someone who wants to go camping with me tomorrow night. I'm like, I don't know. Literally, I'll show it. It's crazy. So just make sure, give it some context and share your story. Share your question. That's my story. Thank you. Thank you. I'll be outside if you want to catch me afterwards during the, okay? I'm glad to talk to each of you, okay? Thank you for listening.